My name is Dwayne Thomas, and welcome to the Great Libraries. Okay, we're back for episode number 2, and I'm going to start out. We're going to leave the masonry department because I think I've covered a lot of the people that I worked with in masonry. And we're going to go back over to the sanitation department and see what happens at the sanitation department. Now, they started me out over the Wyckoff locker room. I cleaned the office buildings back in the back, and of course the security buildings up in the front and the entire locker room. But after a while, poor little Willie Jones, he passed away. He used to drive the ambulance at the Armco Medical Center. We used to call it the Armco Hospital. And he passed away. Well, they needed a person to come up there, and I was the next oldest person to take that job. Plus, I was a paramedic at that time. First time and only time they ever had a paramedic on the ambulance. So I went ahead and took the position. It was a good position. I met some real good people over there. Nurses, Carol Martin, Leah Crease, Clara Hinkle, Nita, Nancy, Lisa, just Betty Wolf, just real good people, and Dr. Matthews. Now, I'm going to explain a little about Dr. Matthews. He has since passed away. I knew Dr. Matthews. I worked with him 5 days a week. He was a good man. I know a lot of guys out in the mill used to make fun of him all the time because of the way he talked and he hobbled. They'd even act like they was hobbling. I never understood that. Me and Dr. Matthews talked every day. He lost his leg in the United States military. A Jeep rode over on him. He didn't. The rumor was he had to take his own leg off, and that's not true. He got gangrene in it because they didn't treat it correctly, and it had to come off. And he was in the U.S. military when he did that. He's an American. He's red, white, and blue, and he bled red, white, and blue. Loved our country, loved what it stood for, and he loved the guys out in the mill because I sat back here many times and talked to him. And he knew that people were making fun of him. And he says, I don't understand it. He goes, I do anything for these guys out in the mill. I respect them that much. Now, I know he said that because I was there when he said it, and I know that he meant what he said. He's a great guy, and he has since passed away out in Arizona, him and his wife. So we're going to move over to, so God bless you, Dr. Matthews. We're going to move over to Clara Hinkle. Now, little Clara had a big mole on her chin, like a witch's mole, and she was feisty. Man, she always ate my ass out about this or that, just teasing. And little Clara had been an Armco nurse over there for many years. And I remember going over there one time because I got burned up. I was over there burning fins, I think. And I got a real serious burn on my hand. I didn't turn it in. And she says, you know, you could get in trouble for doing that. She's treating it. I said, for what? And she says, for not turning that burn in. I can't remember what the term is. A neglected injury, I think is what they call it. And I said, well, if it's a neglected injury, it's neglect on the department's fault because I wasn't given the proper safety equipment to do the job safe. And that shut her up right off the bat. I never would have ever thought I'd been working with her, but she was a nice lady. She died back in the 80s. Her and her husband owned the Baltimore Inn. They called it the Chunky Hunky. And she got off work one day, and Leah Crease, as a matter of fact, Leah's no longer with us. I'm going to talk about her in a minute. She called me up and she goes, did you hear about Clara? And I said, no, what's the matter with Clara? She goes, she died. And I said, well, I just seen her. What do you mean she died? She said she went to the restaurant. It caught on fire. The grill caught on fire. She couldn't get out. She hid back in it's either the meat locker back there or the the freezer area or something like that. She died of smoke inhalation. I went, man, I haven't heard anything about it. So we was all brokenhearted about that because we was all pretty tight over there. So now Leah, I'm talking about Leah Crease. Leah was comical. I loved her. When I was, as a paramedic, I was driving their ambulance over there. We had a bad run over in Franklin. And it just so happens that she knew the family. And she kind of somewhat criticized me, or the squad. And I looked at her, I said, look, instead of criticizing us, why don't you join us? Why don't you go become a paramedic and help us? You'll see that it's different. By George, that's what she did. She went and got her paramedic certification, ran with us for a while. And she was having seizures. And they didn't know what was causing the seizures. And there for a long time ago, she messed her knee up, and they had to pretty much weld her knee together. She had to walk around with her legs straight. Had to be miserable to do that. But she's a grand lady. I loved her very much. She lived right down the street from me over in Franklin. And she loved Halloween, and she made her house up like you couldn't believe. It looked like a haunted house. Just a great person, great person. She's been dead probably about 5 or 6 years. I don't know exactly what the date was. But she was a grand lady. And Leah, love you. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to talk to you and spend some time with you before you left out of here. But you had went somewhere else, and I can't remember what state you went to, but very, very good person. I'm glad to have been your friend. I'm glad to have been all these girls' friends. Marjorie Coral. She was our, I'm not going to say head nurse because they don't like that term for some reason. Nurse in charge. Very nice lady. Her and her husband both, Richard. Richard was a pipe fitter and a plumber out at when it was Armco Steel. Very good guy, pilot. Had every kind of rating in the world you could have. Had his own airplane. Very, very good guy. And he's still with us. Margie, unfortunately, is not with us anymore. I guess she got kind of a case of Alzheimer's. I guess it got worse and worse and worse, and it eventually took her from us. She's buried over in Woodside Cemetery, and she died September 30th, 2017. Very good lady. Very good lady. Now we're going to move from the sanitation department all the way over to the zinc grip area. And I'm going to tell you about some of the stupidest people you'd ever see in your life. Stupid funny, not stupid in the head, they might have been stupid in the head too. But I'm going to start out with Jim Hartman. Jim Hartman was a production foreman over there. Funny as hell, always laughing, always in good spirits. I never seen him angry a day I worked over there on his turn. Real good guy. And he was on a Cushman cart one day. It's a three-legger. It's actually a three-wheeler. I called them three-leggers. A little tire in the front and two in the back. And he's driving it down, hauling ass and not paying attention to what he's doing. And he hits a coil, and it shoots him right through the ID, the internal diameter of the coil, shoots him out the other side. He got it, brushed himself off, and got back on the Cushman cart. Now, another time, we were down. Some kind of problem had happened, and it shut us down. And nobody likes that because that costs the company a lot of money when the line's down. So Jim had the superintendent on the back of the buggy on that Cushman, on that three-legger. And there's a pennant crane there, and the pennant is hanging down. It's down there by the pot, and the pennant is hanging down. And if you don't watch what you're doing, you'll run into it. Well, he knew it was there, but the superintendent sitting on the back looking that way didn't know it was there. So Jim Hartman takes off on that cart. I'll never forget it. Takes off on that cart, starts hauling ass, ducks, and that pennant hits that superintendent right in the back that knocked him right off the cart, knocked his hard hat off and everything. It was beautiful. What a crackerjack. This guy was comical as all hell. Very good guy to work for, very good guy to be around. He passed away over in Hawaii with his wife. They went over there on like a vacation or something like that, and he passed away from that. And they cremated and brought him back home, and he's over in the columbarium area where the mausoleums are at. He's got his own niche, he's up there. He's up there. So very, very good guy. Very good guy to work with. We used to have a thing called butt weld watcher. And James Smiley, I always call him Smilac, big black guy. comical, great, great person. Always played the lottery. He spent more money playing the lottery I've ever seen in my life. And he had worked so much overtime that week. The only other person that worked more overtime than him, I believe, was Rick Roberts. Now, Rick Roberts is still with us. I just talked to him on Facebook the other day. We called him the alien because you have to be alien to work that kind of overtime. And he'd work 2, 3, 4, 5 doubles in a row and finish up on a long weekend, get in the car, go out boating or go to Florida or something. A lot of them guys did that. I didn't do it. And he's a great guy. He's still with us. Smiley's not with us anymore. But Smiley was watching, he was doing an overtime job, or they might have just pulled him off his regular job to do the butt weld watching, because sometimes they'd switch around. And I'm up in 84 crane. So 84 crane, I'm standing up here getting ready to stock the line. And Jim Hartman comes down on his cart, on his Cushman, right around the entrance of the welder's pulpit. And I'm sitting there, and he looks in there, and he obviously can tell Smiley's asleep. Smiley's dead to the world because he's so tired. And he's supposed to be standing up watching for butt welds. So Jim Hartman turned around, put his finger up to his lips, and said, "Shh." I said, "Okay." So he looks at Smiley. He goes over and grabs the bottom strip, which was light gauge, and shook it real hard. And it sounded like we were in two. It looked like somebody had stepped on Smiley's feet and just brought him up standing straight up like he was a board. And Jim Hartman started laughing. I've never seen nobody laugh so hard in my life. And that got me to laughing. I was up in 84 crane. We were just dying laughing. And that's how these guys were, man. Just fun to work with, fun to work for. It don't matter if you're salary or hourly to me. We were all friends. We all watched out for each other. You know, it doesn't matter what side of the coin you're on. You're still a coin. You're on the same coin. You know, so it's just, he was a great guy. And like I said, they cremated him and brought him back over, and he's over in Woodside Cemetery. That was October 24, 2013, when Jim passed away. Now, James Smiley, he died May 2012. And I just told you some things about Smilac. Smilac was great. Oh, if you heard something like, "James Smiley, yeah, I'll work it." He don't even know what you're even going to ask him to do, but yeah, I'll work it. He worked so much overtime, played the lottery like you cannot believe. Very intelligent. He used to sit back here sometimes and talk about the tsunamis. And talking about tsunamis, and I'm thinking, what's he talking about tsunamis for? You know, he's just comical guy. A big guy. And laugh, he could tell jokes and laugh, and we would laugh so hard at him. What a great guy he was. And he was comical. And James is buried over in Greenwood, over in Hamilton. I always call him Smilac, May of 12. Dino Williams. A lot of you guys are waiting on this one. Oh, Dino. Dino was my crane leader. Dino was a former Marine, Vietnam vet, and he eventually transferred down to the lab down there and worked on the lab. And what a comical guy he was. We used to tell jokes and stuff, and he was just, Dino was cool. He was almost like a Fonzie. Wore that round yellow hard hat like the one I had, and just cool. Dick Evans come down there. We called him Big Dick. Big Dick Evans, he come down because he was big, tall guy. Get your minds out of gutter. He came down one time, and he said, "Dino, you guys going to have to bag these coils." "Bag the coils?" He goes, "Yeah, they got to be bagged. It's raining out." "Well, let the narrow gauge bag the coils." He said, "They can't bag the coils. There's only one of them. Get Dwayne. Down here, you guys bag the coils." Oh, boy, that Dino was tore up over that. We almost shut the line down because of it. And Dick Evans come back down there, and I think we was down to one coil. But I got to do what my crane leader tells me to do. Well, we're bagging coils. So Big Dick said something about, "Dino, don't shut my line down. I got to explain why that line's down." He goes, "Well, we're doing our job. We're bagging coils." And I busted out laughing, and Dino busted out laughing. So I got back up, and we had the line stocked in 5-10 minutes. Wasn't no big deal, but that's back when the AK come in, and they're kind of like Walmart. back then. You know, one person does 10 different jobs. If you're a crane operator, you're cranes operators is what you are. Any one given night, I might be on 6 cranes. All the production or all the shipping cranes I've been on one night, including 149, 84, and the cranes back in the back in 70, 78 building. Been on every one of them. And I remember telling one of the guys at Turncoat that was supposed to be our foreman, I need you down here in Turncoat. I said, I'm stocking the line of Zinc grip. We had radios. Well, you going to shut us down? I said, well, if I come down there, I'm going to shut them down. I'll be down there, red light and siren. Okay. And we almost shut Turncoat down. It's just bad management. It's just, one person to do 300 different jobs. Still a good job. I mean, they weren't killing us. But anyway, Dino was a great guy and a former Marine and Vietnam vet, like I said, and he was funny. He was fun to watch. He tried to keep up with them young kids that they just hired back in the 90s. They were out there rimming basketballs and doing all kind of nonsense. And I just sit up in the crane and just look at him, just shake my head like, you guys, that guy's pretty young, Dino. You're getting some age on you. But Dino kept up. I'll tell you what, he was something. I love Dino. I love working with him. Had another guy I worked with, Paul Carpenter. I don't really have any too much information on him. He passed away also. He was one of my crane leaders. But Dino's over in Woodside Cemetery. He died June 18th, 2013. Now we got another buddy over there, Roscoe Wells. I know a lot of you guys remember Roscoe. Roscoe was a great guy. Professional, intellectual. He was going to school to, I think, get his TR, get a degree in electronics. He'd been working on that so he could get the TR. Because that's a pretty technical job. That's why they call it TR. And he had a bad heart. And I don't know exactly what was wrong with his heart. But and Roscoe had a funny laugh. Every time he laughed, I just would almost wet my pants. It's one of them cartoon laughs, and I can't remember how it goes, or I'd try to do it. But he was a great, great, great guy and a great worker, knew his job, did his job perfectly. Everybody loved him, including management. Salary, hourly, everybody loved Roscoe. And the story goes, I think, that he was driving his car, and he felt his heart getting ready to do something, pulled over and died right in the car. So I don't know if he had an electrical abnormality in his heart or what. If anybody knows, you can go ahead and put it in the comments or something. Roscoe, you was a great guy, man. I loved working with you. And just like I said, for all you people, if there is a higher ground, I know all of you are in it. You'd have to be. If you're not, it's not a fair system. So that's Roscoe. He's buried in a family cemetery, I believe, down in Kentucky. I think they took him down to Kentucky. Lanny Begley. Good Lord, oh luscious Lanny. All you guys know Lanny Begley, all you old timers. What a comical cat this guy is. But you know what? Very intelligent. I've sat back here many, many times and talked to Lanny about different things and technical areas and areas of life. He had a good philosophy, and a lot of times I sit there and I can almost disagree with about everybody on just about anything. But I'll be sitting there listening to his viewpoint and say, yeah, that's a good point. Overtime working machine, just like Smiley, just like Rick Roberts. All you got to do is say, Lanny, yeah, I'll work it. He worked himself to death. And he was just comical. He was just comical. Loved the women. And that's all I'll say about that. But he was a great guy. And we worked together back in 70, 78 crane when I was a crane doper. I'd go back in there, I'd sit back here and talk to them guys and talk to the truckers when they come over. And just a good bunch of people. Lanny was a great guy. Now Lanny is buried with his father and his other family 2 rows back from where my grandpa and my grandma was buried. And I thought that was odd because my grandpa is the one that got my dad on, and my dad's the one that got me on. And then one of the guys that I worked with is buried 2 rows right behind my grandpa and grandma. And my grandpa worked in the truck department, and he passed away out at Yankee Road. They found him lying along the railroad tracks and found him dead. And that was back in the 50s, and he was a great guy, what I can remember of him. But he's buried right behind my grandpa and my grandma, and I couldn't believe it. I went over looking for Lanny's grave. I had the number and everything. I looked there, I went, well, that's my grandpa's grave. And I got to looking, and I seen the Begley grave over there. Luscious Lanny, great guy, overtime working fool, loved the ladies. That's all I'm going to say about that. He loved the ladies. But he was a good man. And me and him sit back there and talk. Rough crane operator, not very smooth. But he could be when he wanted to be. But we used to call him Beat and Bang Lanny, or Beat and Bang Begley. And I'm sure he's on the other side too. He's a good man. He tried to do right and tried to do well. Like I said, he's buried over Woodside Cemetery. The Colonel, Rick Dunn. Now, Rick Dunn was one of my crane leaders, and that's over in the Zinc department. They called me Elvis. They called Rick Dunn the Colonel. So it's Elvis and the Colonel. And there's been many times I've walked in door 1A there, the number one door, the first door they ever had that numbered. And somebody see me, and over the intercom they'd play Elvis music, like that 2001 Space Odyssey. And somebody'd say, Elvis is entering the building. I don't know where they come up with this stuff at. You know, I wish I was, well, no, I don't wish I was now. Wish I had his money, his voice, and his looks, and his women. Oh, well, I've been called worse, too. Elvis rolls over in his grave every time he hears that, if he hears it. But he was known as the Colonel. Great guy, heavy-set guy. He married my cousin. And, well, yeah, it's like my distant cousin or something like that, to Cheryl. And he was a great guy. He had liver problems. And he come out in the 84 crane, coil field one night. I was up in 84 crane. It was cold. And I was warm because I was standing up in the crane. We had an electric heater up there. Poor old Rick's out there trying to look for a coil. He's got his clipboard. He's wobbling around out there in the coil field. And because he was still packing a little bit of weight on him. He had lost a ton of weight. And he puts his coffee up on a coil and starts walking around. I said, what's the matter, man? Can't you find the coil? He goes, no, I can't find the coil. All right, he said, I got to go back into the crane shanty, see if I can get the number on this coil and see where it's located. I said, all right. He turns around, walks away, and I'm just standing up there, and I'm looking at the coil, and it's the coil we want. He's got his coffee on it. He didn't even see it because he's standing right by it. So I went ahead, snuck in there with the CNF and snagged into it, picked it up, turned it around, spun it around with this coffee on top of it. Put it on the ramp. Come back, sit the crane exactly where I was at. Put the trolley exactly where it was at. So he comes out, looking at the numbers up on the bridge girders, and went to reach for a cup of coffee that wasn't there, and he goes, he's looking around, he goes, where's that coffee at? I said, it's on the ramp. What the hell you mean it's on the ramp? I said, that's the coil we needed, you dumb bastard. And he gave me the finger, looked up at me, shook his fist at me, and started laughing. And that was the way it was. He'd call me a kook. He'd call me E for Big E, call me King. Who knows? I loved Rick. I loved working with him. He was a fun guy. Fun guy to work with and a good worker. He's buried over in Woodside Cemetery, not too far from where my family's grave site's at. It's just right across the street, catty corner, over by a tree. His marker's kind of hard to see because it's black. I think I'm going to get over and try to clean it so you can see his name. His name's not very well seen, but he was a great guy. I loved Rick. And Rick, I hope you're up in high country because you sure deserve it. 2010, 11, 12, 2010. No, 11, 21, 2010. Now, Mike Combs, I didn't really know too much about Mike Combs. He's passed away a couple years ago, but just about everybody knew him. He's buried over Woodside Cemetery right now. Jen, I know he was a good friend of yours. And I don't know too much about him. If you guys want to do something separate for Mike, sometime let me know. He's been gone, I think, about a year, 2 years. And I do think I remember working with him in masonry before. I think when he was cut out of this slab yard or the hot stripper, somewhere around that area. And I don't remember him being that big, as big as he was, but when he worked with us. But you know, we kind of all get out of shape and everything as we get older. But he's buried over in Woodside Cemetery. From what I understand, he was a great guy. Now we're going to go from Mike Combs all the way over to BOF Steelmaking. I've lost a lot of friends over there, a lot of people, and these people were great people, every one of them. We're going to start out with Chuck Bailey. Oh, Chuck Bailey. A lot of people didn't understand Chuck. I understood Chuck. When you work in a melting section, the melter is God, small g, O-D, but a melter is God. What a melter says, a melter better get, because he runs that entire department. Number 2 open hearth was the same way. That melter up there runs the entire operation, and you better do what he tells you to do. And Chuck Bailey was like that. Chuck Bailey took care of his men. You don't dare mess with Chuck Bailey. Now let me tell you something about Chuck Bailey. I loved working for Chuck. Chuck was a great melter. Now he knew exactly what he was doing. Most of the time our turn was pretty much leading, but we was all pretty close together. Sterling Deck's turn, I worked on his turn for a while. Loved working for Sterling. Sterling, another great man. I loved working for all of them. They're all great. Bobby Wagner, Rick Williams, all of them good people. Bowling Ball, Greg Barnes, who's passed away. I'll get into that later on. But Chuck Bailey was a great guy. And what he said went. Now, we went down one turn for some odd reason. And they told me to take 504 down to the end of the building and lay the spreaders down by the backup. And I said, okay, that's exactly what I did. About an hour later on, I got to go see the safety department. And I go down and ask myself, well, what's going on? Well, you violated safety rules. And I went, well, what did I do? And they said, well, we don't know. We have to go find out. I went, you have to go find out. Now, I don't even understand why they even did that, because I've always been cool with everybody over there. We've always been like this, everybody. All of a sudden, I'm the turd in the bowl of Cheerios. So they're going to have a meeting on me. So what happens is the maintenance foreman that come over for BOF come over and said the meeting's going to be such and such time today. And Chuck Bailey stood up. I'll never forget it. I was down the pulpit because we were down. He put his finger on the edge of the safety or the maintenance guy's nose and said, you hold that blanking meeting over here down there on the strip. Don't you take that man out front. You hold that meeting downstairs at the strip. Okay. Guess where they held the meeting? Down on the strip. That's how much power the melter has over there. Talking to another salary foreman. So I come down the stairs, and Jerry Sherman meets me down at the stairs, and Greg Gardner, bless his heart. And Greg Gardner looked at me and says, Elvis, do you care if we go to that meeting with you? And I said, well, it depends, Greg. Are you for me or against it? He goes, you know better than that. We're for you. And I said, okay. Went down to the meeting. I knew everybody in the meeting because I used to drive the ambulance over there and hang out with the guys down in the safety. I knew everybody sitting there. They're looking at me like, what the hell? So we got down there, and Jerry Sherman was with us. We got down there, and probably for a half an hour, maybe longer, Greg Gardner and Jerry Sherman put out some of the most eloquent MF terms, CS terms. I mean, I've never heard so much. They even made up cuss words and flung it at the safety department. And I knew this guy from the safety department. He's a great guy. And he's sitting there trying to figure out what the hell is going on. It was beautiful. Blood, spit, and ass was everywhere. And Greg Gardner and Jerry Sherman were tearing these guys' asses up. So he looked at me, and they said something about Elvis, and I won't tell you who the guy is. He said, who's Elvis? And they pointed to me. I said, oh, I am. And he looked at me and goes, they're calling you Elvis? I went, yeah, I don't know why, but they are. He goes, oh. Well, Elvis, it says here you ran a blue light. And I went, no, I didn't run no blue light. Blue light wasn't in operation. You didn't run a blue light? No, it wasn't in operation. Well, it says here you ran a blue light. And I said, no, I didn't run a blue light. Well, I guess this meeting's over. Everybody got up, shook hands with everybody and everything. Out the door I went. And went to go back to the crane. And I was getting ready to go back up the crane. Greg Gardner and Jerry Sherman come over. I said, Greg, thanks so much. I shook his hand. I said, Jerry, thank you very much. I said, I don't know how I could ever thank you guys for what you've done to me. You really stuck your. Now, I don't know how I can ever repay you. He says, you're one of the best crane operators we've ever had in 504. We don't want to lose you. You've always done your job. You've always went above and beyond what you was ever asked to do. And we're never going to let anybody like you get picked on from somebody else. Now, these guys came to my rescue. Now, Greg Gardner was a great guy. He was hourly at one time, maintenance, stepped up to salary. He's a Vietnam vet. I think he was in the United States Army. Now, Jerry Sherman, I don't know too much about. I think Jerry's still around, but I don't know if I think Jerry come right out of college. Jerry Sherman was a good man. Doesn't matter what side of the coin you're all on the same coin. If you're on the A side or the B side, we're all on the same coin. So these guys really went to bat with me and took care of me. Greg died at home, I believe, sitting at his table. And I think his heart just failed on him. I think he was wanting to put a pacemaker in him or a defibrillator in him. And he didn't make it. And that really bothered me. He's buried out at Woodside Cemetery. I didn't go. I think I was in funeral when they had his funeral, when they had his services. I probably wouldn't have went anyway because I don't like that kind of stuff. I wouldn't have wanted to see him laying there in his casket like that. But Greg, God bless you, man. You took care of me. You watched out for me. You was a fantastic guy. And I appreciate it. And I want you to know, and I want your family to know, just how good of a guy you was out there. And very smart. This guy was stupid smart. He was so smart. So let me see. That's Greg. I don't even have him down there. How do I leave his name out? Okay, well, we'll go from Chuck Bailey and then Greg Gardner. We'll go all the way down to Donnie Lewis. DL, 501 crane operator. He broke me on a 501. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Par excellent crane operator. Jerry Horn broke me on a 504. And then Donnie Lewis, once you usually transition from 504 down to 501 because 501's trickier. You got to learn how to get that scrap, that clogged up scrap and them jammers into the vessel and hold on to that box at the same time. But he was an excellent, excellent crane operator. And we used to sit down there in a crane shanty sometimes when we were down. And we'd sit down there and we would laugh so hard we'd have tears rolling down our cheeks and just laugh about nothing. He was a great guy, very smooth crane operator, par excellence. We had some good 501 crane operators up there and 504 crane operators, but DL was a great guy. Now he's buried over in Butler County Memorial Park, and he was a great guy. I think his wife has passed too. But he was a great guy. Now Chuck Bailey, he got killed on a motorcycle over in Lebanon. I think he hit like a dump truck or something like that, or cement truck. And somebody told me, I don't know what he was thinking or what he was doing, but he was smiling when he was coming into the truck. So I don't know what that's all about. That's just hearsay. But Chuck Bailey's a great guy. Donnie Lewis is a great guy too, smooth as a baby's ass. Maynard Earls. Maynard, by God, Earls. Now you talk about a crazy dude. If you've ever heard the term, bless your heart and all your other vital organs, that's Maynard Earls. Maynard used to be a professional wrestler, and I used to be a bouncer back in the 80s, but he made me hurt just to look at him. Big shoulders and back that come down to a V, great big thighs on him, big arms on him, 55-gallon drum head. Sorry, Maynard. Huge. Scary to even, makes you hurt to even look at him. And he's the real deal. Maynard was a United States Marine, Vietnam vet. I think he got a Purple Heart with a cluster, I think, and a Silver Star, I believe. He's done everything. He told me one time that he wrestled when he was in professional wrestling, that he wrestled Ric Flair. Woo! Ric Flair. And he told me he wrestled a bear. And he said they brought the bear in with a muzzle on, and the bear come up to him. He said, I hit the bear, knocked the bear out. The bear peed and crapped all over the ring, finally wobbled up and got up on shaky legs and tried to get out of the ring. He said, I grabbed the bear and hit him again, knocked him out again. I just made that shit up. He didn't tell me that. This sounds funny though. He could probably do it. If anybody could do it, Maynard could do it. But he was a great guy. He was funny. And they told me a story one time when he was on the narrow gauge. The narrow gauge is a small railroad. They bring coils to and from buildings. I don't even know if they operate it anymore. I'm sure they probably do. But the foreman said something. I think it was one of the step-up foremen or something like that. Said something to him. And one of the guys that was there said Maynard grabbed him by the throat and picked him up and held him right up against the wall. Now Maynard had arms like this on him. He was massive. He was something. And you knew better. You knew better. I told him one day, I said, Maynard, you hurt me just looking at you. And back in the day, I was pretty hard to clean after, but didn't have his mass. Great guy, graspy voice. I used to see him running up and down Manchester in Middletown with a little dog by his side. And at least once or twice I seen him doing that. But he's a great guy. And he used to tell jokes he worked over at, I think, the D-Gas. And he was just a good guy, man. What do you say about Maynard? You know, you don't want to say anything to piss him off because you know you're going to get your head tore right off. You know, and he's just a great guy. I loved Maynard. He died back on October 30th in 2009. He's been gone almost 10 years. Bag roller, David Evans, died February the 2nd, 19. Bag roller was another Marine, a Vietnam vet, suffering from Agent Orange. And I loved working for Bag Roller. I always called him Bag Rolex. And he was always really cool to us because he stepped up on our turn a lot when other melders are off for whatever reason. And there for a while, he was our melder for a long time. He was fun to work with, fun to work for. You could tease him, he wouldn't get mad, he knew what he was doing. And they called him Bag Roller, I called him Bag Rolex. And I told him on the radio one night, I said, hey, Bag Roller, or Bag Rolex. He goes, yeah, Big E. You know why I call you Bag Rolex? No, Big E. I said, because you got class. He goes, thanks, Big E. He was comical. Well, I loved the Bag Roller. I loved working for him. He was a great guy. And Agent Orange got him. And he died not too long ago. What's his date of birth? Where's it at? Well, he's up there somewhere. I know I put him up there. Oh, there he is. February the 2nd, 2019. Now we got another little good guy over there, Tim DeBrosi. He worked up in maintenance over at BOF. He was a good little guy. He used to come up and crane talk to me. And if I was having trouble with 504 or something like that, he would come up and try to troubleshoot the problem. I think he had a day turn job over there, I believe. Little Tim, I called him Tim sometimes. Good guy, good maintenance man, you know, real friendly, real polite, religious, spiritual person. And you was a good man, Tim. I loved working around you. Good man. And Tim, he died January the 25th, I think, 2018. Tomcat Pence. Good Lord, Ironhead. They named him right. Tom was a good man. He's buried over Butler County Memorial Gardens. Hard-headed, gruff-sounding, but had a good heart on him. He'd do anything in the world for you. And you used to get a kick out of him. He had a real gruff voice on the crane radio. And he was comical. And I called him Tomcat. How you doing, Tomcat? I'm doing good, Big E. How you doing? I said, I'm all right, buddy. And then he was hard-headed because he wouldn't listen to what anybody was telling him to do. He wanted to do it his own way. So he got they said he was hard-headed, so they called him Ironhead. But everybody loved Tom. Everybody loved Tomcat. Ironhead. He's buried over at Butler County Memorial Gardens, like I said, and let me see, he died on May 9th, 2013. Tony Chaney just passed away here not too long ago. I think he worked out in the pit. He died April 23rd, 2019. I really don't know that much about Tony because I never worked in the pit cranes. I know where he's buried, and he's buried over Woodside. But I think he worked some turns on our turn. And I think he had heart problems, I think. If I'm not mistaken, his wife was a teacher or did something in real estate or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he could be standing here in front of me right now. I probably wouldn't know him. A lot of these guys I never met because I stayed on the one side, they stayed on the other. But I understand that he was a great guy. And yeah, I wish him high country, and I wish his family the best. Rich Tyree, oh slick. Rich Tyree ran 501 crane. Good crane operator. They called him slick because he was smooth. And he was smooth. Very quiet, Army veteran, and just a very nice guy. Very quiet, hardly ever said, you know, you could squeeze him by the throat and probably maybe one or two words would come out. That'd be about it. Very good guy. I went up there and talked to him before on different things, and we just sit up there and laugh, and he's gone. Young man, he's gone. He had many years left, you know, running that crane. Once you get on that crane, you don't want to go anywhere else. Once you get used to running 501, honestly, you want your experienced people on 501 because of the scrap. You get in some real challenging situations of getting that scrap. If that scrap gets stuck in the mouth of that vessel, that bottom part of that spout, the snout is stuck in it. And if they move the vessel up or down in any way, they can take that 75 out of the back end of your box, and you just lose control of your lift that way, your load. Very smooth. Set a box down in the car, come right off of it. Some guys that set a box down, springs go flying everywhere. Very, very smooth crane operator. Great crane operator and a great guy. And Rich, he died May 11th, 2015. Kevin Bierman, Elder. Elder Bierman ran 501 crane. He retired before the lockout. And he was a great crane operator. Very smooth, slow, but very decisive. Knew exactly what he wanted to do with the crane, exactly knew what he had to do. He knew exactly what he had to do with the crane. And just very smooth crane operator. We used to sit up here and talk. I used to be his relief. And normally you could set your watch by me. I'd come in at the exact same time. Many times I've come in there before and they didn't even know I was coming because I've come in real early. But Kevin was a great guy. He ran some of the annealing cranes over there, and he passed away May 30th, 2006. He's been gone 13 years already. His wife works over at or was working over at the Walmart in Franklin. And I can't remember her name, but she's a sweet little lady. And that's hard to lose somebody. You know, we was out there on the line, and Kevin was driving the pods, one of the pods truck. He'd got a side job doing that. And when they locked us out, 2006, 2007, whatever it was, we was all sitting out there. We heard a horn blowing and seen a hand go up, and it was Kevin, and we was waving at him. He'd already retired. He wasn't going to go through that again. But Kevin's a great guy. I loved Kevin. Sometimes I'd work an overtime turn on his turn in 504 crane, and we'd work back and forth together. He's a great guy. Now, another guy I'm going to mention right now, give it kind of an honorable mention to, is John Franklin. John Franklin was a great guy. He was a union trustee, and he, let's see, John died back, daggone, when did he die? I don't even have him listed up here. He died back around, he's been dead a couple years. He's buried over in the mausoleum where Jim Hartman and Tony Denisi and Marchetti and all them guys are at. And on the right-hand side of the building when you go into Woodside Cemetery. John, when I was a delegate in the Sanitation Department, I was a delegate in Masonry, and I was a delegate in the Sanitation Department. And John was so smart that he'd come down, he'd talk about labor law and case law, and I would get a headache because I had no idea what he was talking about. That was one of the smartest guys I've ever met in my life when it comes to something like that. He passed away during the night, I believe, and he's buried, he's cremated and buried over in the Woodside Cemetery, over where the mausoleum's at over there, where they got the niches and coffins that can go in the wall. Tony Marchetti's buried there. Ed Denisi's buried over there.